All right, so today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about Boswellia. Comes from the Boswellia strata tree. I'm sure you've heard of it because it's commonly used in joint supplements. And of course, we use a particular trademarked version of Boswellia in our product Joint Support. So Boswellia is basically the resin or the sap that comes from the Boswellia strata tree. That's what they extract from the tree, and that's where all these anti-inflammatory properties come from. So Boswellia has anti-inflammatory properties, which is why it's been used for centuries in things like Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine, to treat things like rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis, which is characterized by inflammation of the joints. Also, the Arthritis Foundation actually recommends that you use a standardized version of Boswellia, standardized to 60% boswellic acid as potential treatment for rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. So what is boswellic acid and why does the Arthritis Foundation recommend a high amount in Boswellia? We'll get into that shortly. So the anti-inflammatory effects of Boswellia also may have some benefits on inflammatory bowel diseases such as Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. So going back to these boswellic acids are basically what is responsible for those anti-inflammatory properties in Boswellia. And there are 4 of these prominent boswellic acids contained in Boswellia, and they are as follows. They are beta-boswellic acid, acetyl beta-boswellic acid, 11-keto beta-boswellic acid, and acetyl 11-keto beta-boswellic acid, otherwise abbreviated as AKBA. So this last one is going to be the biggest and most important one that I'll commonly refer to it just as AKBA for short, because it's a very long name. But you can look right here. I have the structures of both beta-boswellic acid as well as AKBA. And now keep in mind that 60% figure that was recommended by the Arthritis Foundation. So in a typical Boswellia extract, you only get about 30% boswellic acids in that Boswellia. So you do need some standardization, some higher quality ingredients to get up to that 60% mark. So here I have these chemical structures of both beta-boswellic acid and AKBA. Remember, AKBA is the more important one. So basically the difference between the beta-boswellic acid here and the AKBA is that in AKBA, we have a little bit of more chemical changes. We have an oxygen group right here, but more importantly, we have this acetyl group here. And the presence of this acetyl group in the acetyl-boswellic acids helps to inhibit leukotriene synthesis. So leukotrienes are basically produce inflammatory molecules such as inflammatory cytokines, which maybe you've heard of, basically responsible for a lot of negative effects in terms of the inflammation response in your body. So the class of chemical compounds that the boswellic acids belong to are known as pentacyclic triterpenes. It's a triterpene, if you've ever heard of that term, just so you're familiar with what chemical structures can be called. Not very important here though, but the important thing is the presence of this acetyl group and its ability to inhibit leukotriene synthesis. These acetyl boswellic acids, particularly AKBA, is able to inhibit the enzyme 5-lipoxygenase. Now, 5-lipoxygenase is the enzyme that's responsible for converting essential fatty acids like arachidonic acids into these leukotrienes. Now, these leukotrienes produce these inflammatory molecules like the inflammatory cytokines that are not only responsible for a lot of the inflammation response in your body, but they are also responsible for the degradation of cartilage in joints. So inhibiting this 5-lipoxygenase enzyme from AKBA is able to slow the degradation of cartilage in joints. Again, very important when you're dealing with things like rheumatoid arthritis. How leukotrienes work is that they contribute to that inflammatory response in the joints by activating and recruiting inflammatory cells to go to specific tissues. And in this case, of course, that is the joint tissues. The leukotrienes produce both histamine and prostaglandins also. So producing histamine in the joints can cause vascular leakage around the joints, which makes them more prone to attack by these inflammatory molecules. And prostaglandins are also responsible for some aspect of the pain and inflammation experienced in joints. Now, when you hear histamine, you usually think things like allergies. Now, because leukotrienes produce histamine and prostaglandins, the acetyl Boswellic acids have also been looked at for their use of treating asthma and allergies by controlling that inflammation response caused by histamine. Coming back to our product, joint support, now that we know a little bit more about Boswellia, so the trademarked ingredient of Boswellia that we use in joint support is Boswellin. This is a trademark Boswellia, and it's standardized for maximum content of Boswellic acids, both Boswellic acids and AKBA. So remember that figure of the 60% Boswellic acid content recommended by the Arthritis Foundation. Well, Boswellin contains 75% Boswellic acid content, going above and beyond that level. And out of those 4 Boswellic acids, 30% of that 75% is composed of pure AKBA. That going up here, that is that molecule that I showed earlier here with the acetyl group, for its function of inhibiting that 5-lipoxygenase, slowing down the degradation of cartilage, preventing that production of leukotrienes. So again, 75% Boswellic acid, 30% of that is pure AKBA, which is the single Boswellic acid that is kind of the most potent when it comes to joint function. So going back to our dosing here, dosed at 200 milligrams of Boswellin, we have 150 milligrams of Boswellic acids per serving, and you get 60 milligrams of pure AKBA per serving in just one dose of our joint support. And now comparing this 60 milligrams of pure AKBA that you get for joint support, comparing it, how's it compared to studies? So we have a study here, 30 milligrams of AKBA that was used daily alone, without the other Boswellic acids, without all the other ingredients that we have in here, was able to improve joint health by reducing pain and improving physical function in osteoarthritis patients. And then there's a link right there if you want to see it. So lots of benefits for AKBA. And of course, our product joint support not only has Boswellia, which we discussed in this video, but it contains 4 other very potent ingredients not covered here. I will be covering those in future videos. If you have any specific questions about those ingredients, let me know. But those ingredients are cissus, otherwise known as cissus quadrangularis, palmitoyl ethanolamide, which is an interesting one, andrographis, the trademarked UC2, and of course, bioperine, which is mainly for absorption and more specifically for the absorption of the Boswellic acids. So hopefully this video has helped you got more understanding of what Boswellia is, the components in it responsible for assisting joint function, and what you want to look for in a quality product that has Boswellia.